So I've noticed some people join probably to see Gustavo's session on Safran Risk and AI. So we thought we'd try and keep it roughly to schedule. We'll go straight into that session. So I'm just going to introduce Gustavo. Gustavo and I have, as well as Doug, known each other. We've all known each other for maybe 15 plus years. And in that time, it's all been focused on QRA and QSRA. Back in Palisade times, Gustavo was the director of training and consulting there. Now he's doing a lot of training he's the director of training and consulting for Ferryfield, but he also does a lot of the training for Safran. Back at the Palisade times, he was director of Q&A team and the custom development team. So he's got a real in-depth experience in not only QRA and QSRA, but also in software and software development. So kind of leads into his presentation on Safran Risk and AI. And so I'm going to now hand over to Gustavo. You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, I was asking you if you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Great, excellent, and thanks everybody. That I know that people have been going in and out, so thanks for that, and thank you, Doug. Don't you worry, I will cut it so we're not going to make everybody go late home. So don't you worry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a topic that I really passionates me, which is AI combined with Safran Risk. As Doug mentioned before, one of the main deliverables that we as project managers have, and mostly risk managers have, is the risk register, right? So I'm going to guide you through some use cases that could be applied right now immediately, right? If you have a license of Safran Risk, you can do it. And next week, we will have a zip file sent to you in a nice folder that's going to contain all the prompts, the presentations, and everything that we've been doing for these hours today, right? So a little bit about why is it that I wanted to do that, because I think that, and maybe you as well, that risk management rate needs an upgrade, right? So we know that we live in a world of complexity and uncertainty. We know the traditional risk registers are normally static and slow. And how I mean by slow and static is that it's very time consuming to generate one and update one every, I don't know, every month, every 2 months, sometimes every 3 months, because the projects are big undertakes, right? And what AI offers speed, offers depth, offers adaptability. So in no way I'm going to say that this is going to replace a risk manager, but I'm going to say this is an outstanding tool that's going to make your life easier. So as always, my schema with LLMs, I'm not going to explain that in a minute, is that you generate the first version and the LLM is going to refine it. That's the best way of using those, right? That's why I see a smarter future where we rely on these nice new tools that are going to be here, I think, in the long run, I think. Right. So some very quickly preliminary concept. What's an LLM? In case you haven't seen one, I imagine that you've heard about ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Perplexity and all these nice tools, Copilot, right? And what they are, imagine massive matrices of which are trained on billions of tokens or words based on information that was on the internet, right? And these are billions, and you will see that this model has 5 billion or 10 billion or 20 billion tokens, right? And that's what it is. They created this technology that was based on the technology that we have 50 years ago from machine learning, now artificial intelligence. And they generated one thing that changed it all, which is the interface, right? They changed the interface. So now, if you want to do something, you just have to open your ChatGPT and you just type. Before, if you wanted to do some statistical analysis, the data analysis, if you want to generate an initial, I don't know, baseline risk register, you have to do it by hand. You cannot utilize all this knowledge, this general knowledge that was adapted and adopted by this new interface called an LLM, and generate it to you. But at the end, please remember that the LLM, what you have here, it's a really complex and refined and polished machine of probabilities, right? You will have the one after the other, words are being generated as this new, that they call semantic layer, is generating a human-like interface. How you receive the data and you send the data. So these machines are able to interpret the data that you send and to spit out the responses in a human-like way. So that's what it improved everything, right? The interface, because now everybody can talk with one of them. Before it was only systems engineers, right? Now, one thing that we have now, it's one thing called the prompt. And the prompt, you see, you have to specify a role, you can provide a context, define the objective of the prompt, the sequencing, the boundaries, you have to set the tone, you have some schemas or methodologies that we have now to prompt, basically saying that you have to think, and this is how I normally recommend talking to these LLMs, is if you think that they are your practitioner, your 23, 25 years old practitioner that could be wrong, but he or she has studied a lot of things, and you have to be very, very formal. You have to be very detailed. So that's why you need to include at least 3 or 4 of these elements every time. That is going to make your prompt much, much richer. And the result is going to have this element, which are these best practices, and also this, which is called the project input file. The project input file, I'm going to show you one, and you will see, is I would say, the document of the project, right? Where you have the project overview, the risk management, procurement, progress reports, quality assurance, etc. And you have one here, right? Like this. This is a fictitious case called Sierra, right? See here, show it to you like this, right? And what you have is an overview of this project. This project lasts from 5 to 6 years, spending 5 to 6 million. The main objective is to install an assembly factory for IoT. This is what's going to happen with the founding milestones. This is the project team. These are the main risks. You see that I already gave the risks to the LLM, right? The project significance, the expanded next steps, the final milestones, timeline, etc., etc. So the idea is that you will be producing this information as the project progresses, right? And that's what's going to make it much, much richer to the project. If you don't produce that, you're going to get what a generalist will tell you. Is like, if you have a manufacturing project, you will have to do this, this, and that. But if it is an IoT, new, I don't know, interfacing or protocol development project, this is going to be much better. Why? Because you're giving him what we call the P for the project input file. So once you have the prompt rules, right? Once you learn how to prompt, which is basically how to talk to a person, how to describe what you had instead of talking like you talk to Google, right? Once you have the project input file, right, then you can generate, and then you can get leverage, what we call the superpowers of these LLMs, like automate repetitive tasks like register creation or reporting, synthesizing complex inputs like logs, interviews, docs, images, right? Generating code, data analysis, distribution parameters, supporting both technical and not technical communication, etc. Right? So at the AAC back in June, I guess in Anaheim, we did a presentation on how to generate distribution parameters. So if you're a member of AAC, you can see it, how to generate the distribution parameters for a distribution. And now I'm going to talk about risk register. As I said before, first of all, I like to analyze and make recommendations for the first version, and then the LLM will take it and it will enhance it, and it will tell you, you're forgetting this, or perhaps you want to see this point of view, and then you will say, maybe you give it a role and say, give me the point of view of somebody that it's, I don't know, very challenging between this and that methodology, and you can simulate a discussion that you're having with someone, right? That's going to enable faster and more accurate updates. So the example that I'm going to talk about is about this project Sierra that I mentioned about. And the first tool I'm going to show is something that's called Notebook LM. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you didn't. This is a tool by Google. It's for free. So what you can do, you can create a new notebook, and I'm going to do a quick demonstration of it. Right? Then you can take the PDF file that I just showed you. You see, Sierra case story before PDF, and automatically this is going to convert it into your main LLM, right? Into your local LLM. This is not going to the internet. This is going to go to your Google account, right? And this is going to tell you what is it that you have in Project Sierra, right? Project Sierra, multi-year, multi-million-dollar initiative, etc. To the right, you have all the different things that you can have. For example, I want to have flashcards about this because I want to I don't know, train people on it, or I can generate a quiz about it. I can generate my map, which is going to take 3 minutes, right? I can generate an audio overview of it, right? Like this. So for that, and thank you, Chris. So give me just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen again, but now with audio. Give me please 1 second. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, but with sound. You go. You go. Excellent. Okay, good. So now you have this audio overview. You have this video overview. You see here? You can change the language. You can add more things, and you can say, I want to talk about the future of IoT and things like that. In the audio overview, now you have 4 different formats, like a deep dive, briefing, different languages, a critique to the model, a debate about it, etc. Or I can make a quick prompt to the model. So it's like, give me a 1-paragraph description of Project Sierra. This is for my first funding slide in 15 minutes, something like this. So what this is going to do, this is going to go to the Project Sierra, you see, and now it's going to give you what it is, right? Like that. And you can save this to a note, as I did. So you see, this is a part of a note, or it could be a mind map, like I showed you before. So this is the project overview of Project Sierra. This is the timeline and cost, like this, or this is the phase approach that I have. You see years 1 and 2 or 3 or 5, or this is the funding milestones that I wanted to do. Remember the funding sources, major savvy funds, or the identified risk. Here we have the risks that we have, cost, market competition, etc. So you see that you don't need a PowerPoint to do this. You don't need a slide. Maybe you just show this, which is going to be much faster. Now what I did yesterday, I generated this before. I generated for example, the video that you have here in the video overview. So what you can do, you can play it, and this is going to generate a complete presentation. So let's give it 1 second, like this. So you will see it, how it goes. It's outstanding.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into the story of Project Sierra, a tech initiative that, on paper, had it all: a brilliant idea, millions of dollars in funding, and a super detailed plan. On the line, what kind of plan are they expecting to see? What does that even look like? Because, that's where the rubber meets the road. Any plan.
You see, so you can generate this on the fly. I didn't touch any one of the slides, and you can download it, of course. So everything is very open, right? You can download it, you can put it in your YouTube channel, you can send it to your managers. Sometimes people, and I've heard this after they see that, is that sometimes people don't like to read this. You see these status reports. So what you can do, you can come here, upload a new status report there, and say, send me or generate a new audio overview, right? Which is going to be longer, like I think it's like 5 minutes, about the deep dive of what happened this week in the project. And then you can do that, right? So this is going to generate what I call step 0 in this journey, right? Step 0 is understanding the project. And here you have a very nice tool for understanding the project. Second of all, is qualitative risk register. And this is more or less what Doug was showing us a minute ago with the Safran Risk Manager, right? So what you can do with the risk register, you can generate a prompt like this, right? This is the simplified version. The version that you will get is the complete version. I'm just going to show you one, right? Which has all the things that a prompt should have. Like, for example, you see, I'm setting up here, what is it, how is it that you will see the columns, the risk scoring matrix, the additional instructions, etc., etc. So all the things that a prompt should have, right? And what I got is this, right? I got this table saying that it will have a 5x5 impact, like you have here, right? 5x5 impact, like this. And this risk register should at least have 20 risks. That was one approach. The approach that I prefer is that I give him, the LLM, the risks, and I say, generate and refine the one that I sent you. And challenge and tell me what is wrong on my. Once that you have that, you can do something like this, right? You can generate a QRA risk matrix like this, right? Because you have this session, right? And the session keeps the memory. So as you keep the memory, you can say, generate a heat map market with the top 10 risks, the y-axis. You explain the y-axis and the x-axis. You have to tell about the legends, the title, etc., and you will have it like this, right? This will generate the heat map itself automatically, right? Once you have that, you see that now you put the risks on the of the table. That these are on the agenda now. These are visible, so people can take a look to them, right? So what happens is that you will have to assess what happened, right? And here I'm going to do just a quick tip on that. Remember, if you don't use the project input file like I did, this little PDF file, the answers that you will get are generic. If you have the context, if you want a richer description, best risks, realistic costs, better prioritization, you have to use it. Now you will tell me, well, maybe, but this is confidential information. So that's why my recommendation is that you use the tool like I show you, that Notebook LM, or if you can use sometimes ChatGPT, and then you have to anonymize sometimes the project, right? You don't have to tell all the details of the project, but maybe give them the guidelines. That's why you have to give it the first thing, and then it will give you back what you need. That's what we call the human in the loop refinement, right? Now, step number 2 is going to be, let's generate quantitative distribution. So I generated a prompt that said, well, take these scales, right? 1 is very low, 1 to 3 days, 4 to 7. This is the impact, and this is the probability scale, right, for a Bernoulli distribution. And it generated this. This prompt has the same format that you will need to create, to move this QRA risk register, right, and put it into Safran Risk. And that was the idea. So you see that Safran Risk has these import capabilities, these outstanding capabilities where you can import. So you can take the risk register that you generated and say, I want, and let me show you here, I want, let me show you in a minute. It's here, yeah. I want these risks to be moved to Safran Risk. And here you have, again, the distributions, how they are going to look like. You see that you have a semicolon. You see that they have this semicolon plus the space and all that, all these formats. You can put it there. In addition to that, you can, even as the note, you can put a justification both in the impact and the probability, or in just one line, however you like to do it, right? So you have the reason why. Sometimes we just specify things, but we do not verbalize that. So here you can add it, right? And then we enter Safran Risk. When we enter Safran Risk, what we do is that we reformat the risk register into the Safran Risk compatible structure, like ID, description, etc. We generate the XLSX file, right? And then what we can do is we take this information that we have, right, the import format, generate a CSV file, and then we take all this information from here to here, as Doug did like an hour ago, right? So you can import that. So remember, we came from all the way from these LLMs, from our minds, to a CSV file, to that. What's the nice thing about it? That instead of you having to write all these formulas in Excel, maybe you want to do it, some people don't like it, you just have to keep the prompt. So my recommendation would be is that you keep a library of your prompts, because your prompts are going to be your new operating system or your new Excel sheets, right? Because if you do it nicely and you keep all these tips of prompting that I showed you before, you will take this information from your CSV to Safran Risk all the time for every project. You don't have to do any changes, of course, unless the project requires that. But if you don't, that's going to be the way, right? Also, what we did, we mapped the uncertainties. You see that as Chris was showing before, you have the ability to map all the uncertainties in a CSV file. So that's something that we did as well. We generated E1, EU1, 2, and 3 for the tasks, and also we generated a prompt that created the risk mapping structure. Additional to the EU1, 2, and 3, we also map some risks to the tasks, you see? So this risk number 1 is going to be mapped to tasks number 9 and 28. Risk number, I don't know, 7 is going to be for tasks 37, 45, 49, etc. And we generated another prompt that took all this information, because you see that this is very readable information, and moved it to this format, which is the format that Safran Risk uses, and generated this, right? And that was the idea, right? To take all that information from these files, which were CSV files, first generated LLM files, then CSV files, then went to Safran. And here what happened is that, of course, we need this human in the loop interface that I said before. Well, we ran the first simulation, we generated the elements, everything looked okay, right? Let's say that we were experts on that, and these elements looked okay. But as always, you need, with every time that you get a result from an LLM, you need to refine the results. And this is what happens, right? Here we found, when we were doing this, that it generated a mechanical pattern for the uncertainties. You see, these are the uncertainties in the mapping, interface, and you see that this didn't respond to any logic. So this was wrong. Remember, this is like you show the risk mapping to somebody in Safran Risk 1 week ago, and perhaps they are not experts, risk managers, and they just see it like that because maybe you didn't explain it well. And this is what happened to me. I didn't explain exactly what I wanted, so I needed to explain it again and say, look, reassess this distribution. You see, so this is the activity ID, and now you have what we call a revised uncertainty. So the activity 31 now have a different one, activity 33 has a different one, etc., etc. So I reassessed and changed all of them because and this is why we need this human in the loop, because we need to validate the results. Otherwise, this was an hallucination, and of course, I can just go with it and even run with it. Of course, ask for money on it, which is something that perhaps if you, my word will be over trust, right, in AI will be. So we have to be careful with that. Once we did that, you see, the initial one, my P50 was reduced, you see, from 4 days, my P80, the same thing, my P90, same thing, right? And this is what we did, right? We calibrated this. We were able to import this risk register into it. We were able to import the distributions. We were able to import the mappings. You see that all of these things that normally take a lot of time. So it's good to have a first version, right? Or is it good to have a first version that was aligned with that? Remember that you can do it the opposite. You can take the risk mapping that you did after you socialize it, export it into Excel, and tell any of these LLMs to see if these are okay, if there's something that we are forgetting. So remember, it's two ways, and that's the nice thing about that. Now that we have that, of course, we generated the histograms, we refined the risks as well, created all the amazing sensitivity analysis graphics that we have. What we did, we generated this final report creation. What I took, you see that the moment that you have the Analyze tab, you have this report that has this feature where you set up the focus activities, the focus cost, and then you generate everything that is related with cost and time and all the impact. So I took this PDF that was generated and feed it into the LLM and say, well, give me a couple of pages report of a project Sierra. And now remember that in the same session, so I had the information that I have from my PDF, and now I have my information that I have from this new PDF, from this PDF that was generated by Safran Risk. Well, actually, it's a Word doc that I had to transform into a PDF, right? So what's the goal? Where are we now? Understanding the risks, etc. Right? What happened with the mitigation? I asked it to generate the mitigation strategies. I'm not going to go deep into that, but I was able to generate that and to present it. So what happens is that now into the report, now I have the mitigations, what I can apply. You see, pre-validate sensor batches, maintenance shortlist or alternate vendors. You see, for this risk, the team misalignment, implement cross-squad planning, assign interdependencies, etc. Right? So I was able to go through that, right, into the same report. Here, instead of having the key simulations outcomes that sometimes people don't like to see, this like Excel-like visualizations in that report. So it generated something very nice like this. So this is my deterministic P50, P18, P90 dates like this. And it generated some insights. I asked it into the prompt and so it generates insights for each one of the sections. So it's easier to read. You see, so actually I tried to humanize a little bit more the report, which is the project might extend nearly a year beyond its deterministic baseline, etc. Right? Added the risks and sensitivities, added the risk state like this, and even some recommendations at the end. And that's the idea. That's the idea of all of this, right? That we took all this information that I got for the LLM and my collaboration, right? Like co-pilots, generated through the LLM, imported into Safran Risk, imported the mappings into Safran Risk, run the simulation, generated the report, and took the PDF that I had before, combined with the PDF that Safran Risk generated, and then generate this nice report, which is a little bit different. It's a little bit more for wider audiences, let's say, because the other is pretty technical, right? And that was the main idea of the experiment. So the main takeaways, and hopefully I'm not even running out of time, so you will tell me, Craig, is that LLMs are powerful.
You got 9 minutes. So you got plenty.
Great. So maybe we will have some extra minutes so you can present Fred. So key takeaways. LLMs are powerful risk allies, right? That's how we see that. These are powerful tools that you can utilize, and they are going to be, productivity from all places. We can go from static logs to dynamic simulators, you see? So instead of having this static risk register that perhaps you don't have even resources to do, now you might have a process that's going to refine it. Keep the data, better data equal better decisions, and always use product input files. So as I see some questions in the Q&A, yes, we will provide with the prompt and with the files that I use, because this is totally fictitious, so I don't have any issues with that. And my recommendation now, if you try to implement it in your company or in your team, right, try to start small and scale fast, right? Try to start very small, try to empower people, try for people to use it. And some challenges, I've seen some challenges that say, well, this afternoon we're going to try to 2x something. So if you take 30 minutes to do something, now you're going to take 15 with this technology. And now we're going to take 10 or take 5. Right? And everybody's trying to do things. You know your pains, right? Or maybe you don't. Sometimes it's something that you carry for so long that you don't know. So that's what we wanted to share.